obviously I've been doing that. It's just that the past few days I've been sleeping pretty late, around 11 something, 12, because of the sheer amount of activity that I'm doing. You know, when Sadhguru talked about him sleeping only 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day or so, I find it hard to believe. And when he talked about the idea that when we sleep so often, when we sleep so long, parts of our life are gone. At first, I scoffed at that because sleep was very important to me. But for the past few days, I've come to reframe that idea, because my current need for sleep is hindering the amount of activity that I want to do. So as I'm speaking to you guys right now, I'm having a bit of a pounding headache, primarily because I had probably too much coffee. And by definition of too much coffee is 2 cups, which is not much, I know. But lately, as my practices, when my sadhana is increased, I find that my need for coffee has reduced significantly. And for some reason now that I drink 2 cups of coffee, it became too much for me. So let me start from my meditation session just now. As I was sitting down and doing my meditation with my back straight, quite a number of things comes to mind. I find that an unexplainable, I can't use the right words to describe this, but I feel much better sitting up while I'm doing my meditation with my back straight. Even though there's a bit of a soreness, I feel much better than when I relax. I'm starting to notice these small little things here and there. Now it's my 28th day of doing my sadhana, my practices. And in yogic cultures, there is this talk about Kundalini energy. And the Kundalini energy is basically the energy that comes from all the bases of your chakra, from the bottom of your groin, all the way along your spine to the top. And they talked about how your spiritual development rises with the rising of the Kundalini energy. So the higher the energy goes, the more awakened you are. And I have never been a person who believed in stuff like this, but today I felt it. Today I felt the energy rising. It's a very subtle thing, and if I was as busy as I was in the past, I would have never understood it. But nowadays, I'm very blessed to have this lifestyle, so I'm becoming more and more aware to small little bits of things like this. And it ties in with a lot of things I learned today in NLP class, because one of the first things we talked about in NLP was the physiology. So as an example, if someone is feeling depressed, they would go like this, they would be down. So they would literally, when we say someone look down, they are literally looking down. And when we are looking down like this in NLP methodology, we talked about how we are searching for our feelings. We talked about how our eyes go. We talked about the idea of calibration, and we haven't gotten very deeply into it just yet. But I realized it ties in with the Kundalini thing. So even though the ancient Indians do not know how to categorize or how to describe this in a scientific way, but they realize that the same thing is happening when we are going like this. We will feel a certain way, and when we go like this, we will feel a certain way. And that's the reason why meditation, we are asked to sit upright. We are asked to sit up straight as we meditate. Look up a little bit rather than looking down, looking up slightly. And as we do this, as we do our meditation in that practice, the realization that comes from a state of looking up, because we feel much better doing this, there's a lot more things that we can experience as opposed to when we're doing down like this. So one of the exercises that we were doing just now was about association. So the teacher gave us 5 words, and we were asked to say what is the first word that comes to mind as he said those 5 words. So things like money, what's the first word that comes to mind? Work, what's the first word that comes to mind? Family, what's the first word that comes to mind? I realized in this exercise, how busy my mind is, even though I've already made it quiet quite a lot, but it's so busy. And I asked this question towards the end of the class. I said that actually the first word that comes to mind isn't exactly the first word I notice. It's actually the second word I notice. Because the first word, what are words? Words are ideas. And as the idea was forming in my head, just before the first idea was converted into a word, the second word came up and overtook the first word. So I'm actually noticing the second word as opposed to the first word. And this is and I realized this for the first time. And also as the person in front of me was talking, I was still thinking that I can literally notice the background noise of my mind talking. And it was going from one word to another word to another word to another word. And as as the instructor tells us the next word, what the word that stuck to my mind as he spoke those words out loud was heavily influenced by the words of the past. There is a lot of significance to this because how often in my life have I not noticed what I was thinking? Just because the activity of the mind is so busy. How often had this happened? It has probably happened even like right now with so much focus and so much concentration. I realize one word which I miss, one thought which I miss. How unaware have I been for my whole life just because I didn't realize this? And the idea that what we were thinking before could influence what we're thinking now. With so much attention, I realize that it is still happening and that I have completely no control over it. But in the past, I would have thought that I have full control of my faculties. But now I realize now that I have very little control of my faculties. I don't feel scared, but it does feel very significant. It feels very, very significant. And so this is completely unexplainable. And this there is some connection between this and what I'm feeling when I'm doing meditation with my posture upright. And also there's another thing which I somehow it's coming together, but the connection is very tenuous. I just couldn't see it, but I can somewhat sense it, you know. I keep hearing about how enlightened beings or realized people who are realized, who are self-realized, they are at some point in their development, the growth is no longer incremental. Sorry, it has always been exponential. It has always been exponential, but there's a certain crucial point in their development in their lifetime where their development suddenly shot up, like on a vertical path, almost vertical path. And they often very much describe those situations like they are at one with everything. And every lessons that comes from there, every idea that came articulated from their thoughts from that moment onwards are simply attempts at recapturing the experience, articulating the experience that they remember during those moments. Carl Jung experienced the same. David Hawkins experienced the same. Sadhguru experienced the same. Eckhart Tolle experienced the same. Every master that I have every master that I've heard from, that I've learned from, that I read a book about, every experience is the same. Or at least I hear the same words being spoken. And here's the thing, none of them are scientific. I would have to say that none of them are scientific. All of them said the same thing. They said at some point logic has to be abandoned. At some point rationality has to be abandoned. and it can only, you can only abandon rationality when you have rationality. So these people are people who are from illogical, they have grown to become extremely logical, and from the moment of extreme logic they have grown to completely illogical again. And as I was talking about this in this experience, someone pointed out within the group that there is this neurosurgeon, or at least this brain scientist, who have experienced a traumatic event where half her brain was paralyzed due to stroke. So in that moment, I listened to the TED Talk this afternoon over during lunchtime. I didn't have any food, but I was listening to it. She was experiencing a stroke incident in the morning, and her right arm was completely paralyzed due to the stroke. But there is this alternating conversation between her logical mind and her creative mind. Her logical mind is screaming at her, something is happening, get an ambulance. Whereas her creative mind, her right brain, or her left brain, is saying, wow, this is amazing. This is fascinating. Let's see more. And then her right brain will take over, her logical brain will take over again and say, no, something is wrong. And this will alternate. And it alternated with growing intensity up to a certain point where her right brain, sorry, her left brain, her logical brain completely loses all connection with reality. She wanted to call the ambulance, and she was calling someone, but she could see the numbers, but she couldn't make any sense of the numbers. And at the same time, she felt this tremendous sense of euphorism. Like she felt expanded. She felt completely unleashed. And as I was listening to all of that, I'm losing the ability to articulate what I'm feeling right now. But as I am listening to all of that, it struck me that all these things are exactly what Sadhguru mentioned. She couldn't feel the difference between herself and the world. She would touch a table and she couldn't tell where her arm began, where her hand ends and where the table began. It's as though every molecule was the same. So that is fascinating to me. So I know this intellectually right now. I can understand this intellectually. I can understand what she's saying, but I can't know what she's saying because I haven't yet experienced it. And so it begins that I must now figure out how. But at least this gave me a bit of a crutch, because this bit here tells me definitively right brain, left brain. Left brain, creative, right brain, logic. And after I finished watching that video, I had a pounding headache on my left brain. I find that really interesting. Her message was, if more people could at least once in their life experience the bliss that she experienced when her left brain was completely paralyzed and when she felt at one with the universe, the world would be so much better place. And she said that she was rising. By the way, she said that she was going up there, like she was ready to leave her body at that point in time. But what got her to remain was the vision that the world would be filled with people who are kind, compassionate, beautiful, and empathetic. She believed that the moment people feel this, it is inevitable that they will become kind people. And I am really ready to experience this. Although I understand this intellectually, I don't understand it experientially, and I really want to experience experientially. So I looked for her book, and I unfortunately couldn't find any book of hers that describe how to get to that state. but she did wrote a foreword to another author. So I'm gonna go and read this author's book. It is called. I've just downloaded it off of Kindle. I have just downloaded it off of Kindle. This the energy codes, the 7-step system to awaken your spirit, heal your body, and live your best life. It's written by Sue Morter. I can. I do not know how this works, but I'm gonna buy it and I'm gonna read it and I'm gonna tell you how my experience of using this. There you go. I am now done with my sharing for today. I'm gonna see you guys tomorrow, 6:45 a.m. It has been quite a day. My day is nowhere near over. It's gonna finish around 11. Time to push on. I will see you guys 6:45 a.m. tomorrow morning. Same thing. What I feel like sharing. Journal with me. In the meantime, stay healthy, stay safe, stay true.